Good evening. The City Council Local Redevelopment Authority Board for the City of Riverbank is now in session. Today is Tuesday, September 26, 2023. Time is 6 p.m. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing.
Good evening. Let us pray. Father God, we just come before you this evening, and we're so grateful and thankful for this opportunity to gather here in these chambers, Father, for Riverbank. And Lord, we want to thank you for this great city. Lord, I know that you said that if we remain in you, you will remain in us and we will bear much fruit. I just pray, Father, as we conduct business, God, that, Father, we would turn to you for the wisdom that is necessary for us in moving forward. God, I also want to thank you for these presentations tonight as we celebrate our Hispanic heritage and also the Walk and Roll School Day. I just pray, Father, that everyone would participate, that they would receive support and recognition for all their hard work. In Jesus' name, amen.
Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe?
Here.
Councilmember Jones-Cruz?
Here.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez?
Here.
Vice Mayor Hernandez?
Here.
Mayor O'Brien?
Here. There'll be no changes to the agenda. There's going to be a procedural change. So when we have comments, either for public comments or for presentations, we'll do Zoom first and then followed by in-council comments. With that, any authority or council member who has a conflict of interest or staff on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Seeing none, we're going to move forward. And the first is going to be item 7.1, Proclamation Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th to October 15th. And Nancy Garcia, want to come on up? Okay, so do you. You have a 15-minute speech ready?
No. No.
I tell you, people are not prepared. Oh, good, good. All right, good evening, Nancy. Thank you for being here and everyone else for being here. The City of Riverbank Proclamation, Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th through October 15th. Whereas the City of Riverbank is committed to continuing to build a welcoming and neighborly community, embracing diversity and fostering equality, equity for every resident, and whereas Latinos and Hispanics have enriched the Riverbank community and play a vital role in Riverbank economy and workforce with cultural, educational, and political influences. Whereas the residents of Latino and Hispanic origin make up 57% of the city's population, making it the largest race or ethnic minoritized group in the city. And whereas Latino and Hispanics Heritage Month is an opportunity to celebrate the vibrant traditions of the peoples whose ancestries can be traced to Mexico, Central America, Caribbean, South America, and Spain. And whereas the Hispanic community has had a profound influence on our city throughout their strong commitment to family, faith, hard work, and service. And whereas Ms. Nancy Garcia is a Riverbank High School graduate and worked with the Riverbank School District for 34 years, Ms. Garcia has been a crucial part of the City of Riverbank cultural events, such as the former Cinco de Mayo Festival for 5 years, along with the Cinco de Mayo Committee. This year will be the 4th year Ms. Garcia will be partnering with the City of Riverbank for the annual Day of the Dead event. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the City Council of the City of Riverbank hereby proclaims September 15th to October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month and invite all to celebrate with the contributions that have been made to our city and our community by Hispanic Americans. Signed this day, September 26th. Thank you very much. And before you get to speak, I'm going to bring up Jacob from the Senator's office.
Hi, Nancy. It's nice to meet you. On behalf of Senator Marie Alvarado Gill in the California State Senate, just like to present you with this certificate recognizing all you have done to spread awareness about Hispanic Heritage Month and the culture of Hispanic Americans. Thank you so much for all that you've done for Riverbank and for our community. Thank you.
You're not good, Jacob, good on that side. You have to show the proclamation, okay? Come on down. You want to stand in front of the. So we stand in the table, they stand around. No, come on. You have to speak into the microphone.
Into the microphone. Okay, thank you.
This is being recorded.
Oh, okay.
And-
All right. Oh, thank you. Well, oh, thank you. I'll take that. Let me set this down too. Thank you so much. So, first, good evening to all of you, and thank you. Muchas gracias for inviting me today and for honoring me in this way. I never in my wildest dreams would have expected this. So thank you so much. It also gives me great pleasure to be part of this community and to live in this community and to grow up in this community and be able to support and help in any way that I can. So for 34 years, I've worked with the Riverbank Unified School District, supporting students through college and career choices, and really wanted, what's best for them and help them find what's best for them. Because growing up, I didn't have that. And so it was nice to find somebody who could help me through that. And so I wanted to do the same and give back. And then also knowing that there's such a large Hispanic community, being able to provide culture into this community so we have a better understanding of each other. And we all have that in common. We all have that, sense of loss, especially right after the pandemic. And so it was a great opportunity for us to celebrate the Dia de los Muertos and to bring the community together to celebrate that event. And it just means so much to me. So thank you so much to the city of Riverbank for adding to their calendar. I know how busy it is, this event, and for allowing me to be part of that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. The next will be, oh yeah, she gets the flowers. Someone take a picture of the flowers. That's more important. Yes, we can. Yes. Everybody get up here. Jose. Thank you. All right. Armando Nunes, would you come on up here, please, sir? One of the vital members of our community also. Okay, City of Riverbank Proclamation. Walk and Roll to School Day, October 4th, 2023. Whereas the City of Riverbank deems the health and safety of its students as a primary concern, and whereas the lives of hundreds of children could be saved each year if communities took steps to make pedestrian safety a priority. And whereas a lack of physical activity plays a leading role in the rising rates of obesity, diabetes, and other health problems among children, and being able to walk or bicycle to school offers an opportunity to build activity into a daily routine. And whereas driving students to school by private vehicles contribute to traffic congestion and air pollution, And whereas an important role for parents and for the community is to teach children about pedestrian safety and become aware of the difficulties and the dangers that children face on their trips to school each day and the health and environmental risks related to physical inactivity and air pollution. And whereas children, parents, and community leaders around the world are joining together to walk and roll to school and evaluate walking and bicycling conditions in their communities. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Riverbank hereby is proclaimed Wednesday, October 4th, 2023 as Walk and Roll to School Day throughout the City of Riverbank. And as such, encourages everyone to promote the safety and health of children today and every day. Signed today. And before I give it over, we had a vehicle hit a bicycle today. Early this morning at Patterson and Oakdale. And not only how safe the children can be, we as drivers have to be very much aware of what's going around us. But sir, before I welcome you, here comes Jacob. He's going to do the same thing. Okay, we're going to take pictures when you have. Everybody come.
Good evening, members of the board, Riverbank residents, and community partners. I want to thank all of you for this special acknowledgement. This is an area that's near and dear to my heart. And my former district, before I came to Riverbank Unified, we were very active with the residents in the community establishing a walking school bus. So that begins with doing walkability assessments, and sometimes just with a simple event such as a walk to school day. I'm glad to say that last week I did meet with the school site administrators at California Avenue, and there is now interest from the families from California Avenue in establishing a walking school bus. So we are going to continue conversations beyond this date starting next week. So we hope all of you can join us next Wednesday, but just know that there's more to come and we're excited about that. Student safety is a priority, as we all are aware, and there's many other attributes why you establish a walking school bus. As a school district, attendance and participation in school day is a must in every day, right? Monday through Friday. There's obviously health benefits, air quality, and lots of many other factors. And so I'm excited because we were very successful the last time we did it with the families, but it does take the community. So we invite the City of Riverbank and all of our community partners to come together as we move forward in establishing a walking school bus for California Avenue. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The update today is to the August 2021 strategic plan, and we'll give yourselves, along with the members of our community, an idea of all of the projects that the city has been working on over the past 2 years and the progress that we've been able to make. So I won't be touching on every single strategic plan item. I'll be highlighting those that have had the most activity over the past year since our last update. So to start off with, the strategic plan does discuss what the city's mission is, which is that the mission of the city of Riverbank is to provide high quality professional services and a safe, family-oriented community for our diverse residents to thrive. Along with that is a vision statement. Where do we see ourselves in the future? We see ourselves as a regional leader in sustainable development, offering a unique, culturally diverse, safe, and welcoming community with a thriving downtown, recreational opportunities for all ages, and sustainable economy that supports our growing population. At last week's league conference, there was a question asked of the city council members that were attending one of the general sessions, and that was about your core values. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware that our strategic plan does have our core values. These core values were developed as part of that strategic planning process in conjunction with city staff. So our core values include integrity, collaboration, transparency, diversity, respect, customer service, innovation, and responsiveness. And so let's talk about some of the progress we've made. So under ensure the city's continued financial stability, which is one of the city's goals, under the objective of review and update master fee schedules and rate schedules on a regular basis, we recently updated sewer rates to include some of our key projects that we have been working on, including the regional recycled water project, as well as solid waste rates in order to ensure that we're in compliance with SB 1183. Number two, continue to seek local, regional, and federal grant opportunities to support projects. And on that one, I'm going to highlight the fact that we had a recent award from the Department of Energy for a battery backup system at the Riverbank Community Center. And also as a result of the regional recycled water project, we have been actively seeking grant opportunities via the FEMA BRIC program. We have also applied for the State Water Resources Control Board State Revolving Fund loan funds. And then in the future, we will be applying for water infrastructure future needs. It's called WIFIA. I forget what the acronym means. Through US EPA for projects such as those. And the third, explore the use of renewable energies for city operations of vehicles. Of course, most folks have seen our solar energy projects that we have been implementing throughout the city. Wharton Park, Community Center Park, and our police services, those are almost complete. The additional funding that we've received from the Department of Energy for the Community Center will be a second phase for the battery backup project. And then the wastewater treatment plant solar energy project is currently in the works and being reviewed by San Joaquin County. Under our goal of improved public safety, number one, adequate funding for appropriate levels of staffing. Just recently, we entered into the state resource officer contract with Riverbank Unified School District, and we were able to partner in the funding for that position. So we're extremely happy that we have been able to achieve that. Number two, support emergency preparedness throughout the community. That is always ongoing for us, but recently we did participate as part of the Central Valley Incident Management Team for all of the January and March storm events. At the upcoming Operational Area Council, which is the council that oversees and that all of the cities participate in, we'll be discussing freeze warnings, flood warnings, etc., as we prepare for the upcoming winter storms. And then number three, maintain safe and well-lit streets and roads. Of course, that's always ongoing and a priority for our development services projects department, where we've recently completed Roselle Avenue sidewalk project and the Claus Road sidewalk project, which directly affected our Riverbank Unified School District students at the high school, where there's now more walkability in that area so that they're a little bit safer as they're walking to school. Continuing under improved public safety, support and enhancements for safe routes to school. I just mentioned the Claus Road project for that one as well. Monitor treatment, storage, and delivery systems to ensure safe and reliable delivery of water, ongoing as required by our State Water Resources Control Board. And then, of course, we were happy to announce earlier this year that well number 10 is now back and active within our water system. And then the last item, explore use of technologies to include camera. That's been ongoing. Earlier this year, the City Council approved a new agreement with IntelliSight in order to upgrade our cameras. And it actually added air quality monitoring to all of our major intersections. Under improve our historic downtown, we've got item 1, which is support efforts that promote beautification of the physical environment, including public art. Of course, within the past year, we did add the Centennial mural, which was completed last year as part of our Centennial events. And we currently are exploring other locations and partnerships with local nonprofits, especially the Historical Society, who's interested in doing a public art feature. Support the efforts of code enforcement. Next week, we'll be celebrating Code Enforcement Officers Week, or excuse me, the next meeting will be celebrating that. But recently, along with number 3, which was enforce compliance by landlords through fines and incentives, was the vacant building ordinance that the City Council adopted several months ago back in May. Number 4, explore opportunities for the facade improvement program. The guidelines were adopted by the City Council in April 2023, and then we're currently working with 5 businesses in order to review their plans and be able to give them the thumbs up for construction. Coordinate efforts with the Chamber of Commerce, Opportunity Stanislaus, and regional economic interests to identify opportunities. Recently, we met with Opportunity Stanislaus, who put together a survey for our small businesses to see what kind of no-cost trainings we would be able to offer. Those survey results were recently received, and it looks like the first area or first topic that we will look to offer no-cost trainings for is going to be social media and marketing. And then number 6, include charging stations for electric vehicles. Our community center project will include the infrastructure for 2 charging stations at that location. Once that work is complete, then the city will be applying for grants for the actual charging stations themselves. And then the senior community center project that's located here at 3rd and Stanislaus, they'll actually be installing the infrastructure for 4 charging stations. Under improve internal and external communication, proactively communicate news about the city to residents, businesses, and surrounding businesses. We have been increasing the amount of social media postings that we've been making, and then ensuring that those are in both English and in Spanish. And then we're currently working with 3 firms for proposals for more active social media and public information sharing work. So that will be coming to the City Council once those proposals are received and reviewed. Under promote regional interaction with surrounding communities and service providers, we are working with the Riverbank Unified School District on a variety of events, such as the Walk and Bike to School Day, and then the UC Merced agreement that was signed last week, where we had city attendees as well there too. We are also meeting on a monthly basis to ensure that any projects that they might be working on that are of interest to City Council can be shared, and vice versa. We will let them know of any projects that we're working on that will have an impact on their school or potentially their enrollment. Number 3, work with youth to develop a youth council. So that is something that We've been discussing with Riverbank Unified School District and their superintendent, so more to come on that. Under encourage employee development, support employee training and enrichment, we've been currently holding quarterly staff meetings so that all of the staff stay up to date on all of the city's important projects. Of course, we do sometimes have funner events, like we just recently held our summer picnic where we were able to play games and socialize with each other. So it's not always business, but we always ensure opportunities for staff to come together, be able to get to know each other. Over the past year, we have added about 10 positions in the city, which for a small city our size is quite a bit. And so we always want to make sure that employees are aware of all of these new staff members coming in and can continue to work together as a team. Number 2, review technological tools and software to assure maximum efficiency. Recently, Public Works implemented the use of mobile MMS, and then that's for all of their needs to track all of their assets and any work associated with that. They'll also be using that for backflow inventory. And then building and planning, will be implementing the use of their iWork system for their building permits. And number 3, research the feasibility of a new city hall to accommodate current and future needs. Based on council feedback, we're currently evaluating proposals from leasing agents for that. Promote sustainable development is the next goal. Work with LAFCO to update the city's sphere of influence. So the city has been working on looking at opportunities to expand our sphere of influence. And then, of course, there have been discussions with regards to the future Riverwalk EIR. So we'll be looking at opportunities to explore expansion for that. Follow North County Corridor and its impacts on Riverbank. Just recently, we held helped to facilitate a community meeting along with Stanislaus County that provided information to residents regarding the North County Corridor and its timeline, especially for those residents that are going to be the most impacted in the eastern part of Riverbank. Number 3, housing element update. At the last meeting, we did award the contract to JB Anderson Land Use Planning in order to begin that update. And then number 4, continue to develop regional waste resources and treatment plans and identify funding for the project. And of course, I mentioned those earlier as well as part of the funding opportunities that we were looking for. Under support economic development that promotes job housing balance, we've got complete the Crossroads West developments. So earlier this year in July, we held the groundbreaking for the commercial center. So we're really excited about that. And of course, the housing developments are ongoing within the development. Focus efforts on manufacturing and development businesses. At the last city council meeting, the city council approved the conditional use permit for Ametis, which is going to be a wonderful project regarding sustainable aviation fuel and renewable diesel. And then 3, complete the conveyance of the Army property to the city. There's still progress being made on a daily basis. We're glad that a couple of the issues that have been holding up the conveyance seem to finally now have been resolved. So we are looking at mid-2024 for conveyance. And enhance the quality of life. Maintain and refresh the parks, trails, and facilities to provide exceptional experiences. Over the course of the past year, Castleberg Park basketball courts, the trail were remodeled, the trail was remodeled, and that includes the installation of workout equipment. And then staff is currently working on the environmental review for the expansion of the Jacob Myers Park Trail. Number 2, seek ways to provide amenities and facilities to underserved aging neighborhoods. So recently we did sell the property to the Riverbank Housing Authority for the construction of a senior community center. And then of course, all of the wonderful improvements that we were able to make to Castleberg Park. came through the ability and use of the CDBG funds from Stanislaus County. So we were very pleased to be able to use funding there. Future funding will also help to provide updates to Pioneer Park. Number 3, support Love Riverbank and other volunteer groups. We're really excited that this year Love Riverbank, thanks to Pastor Randy, just went absolutely wonderful, and all of the volunteers that were able to come together. So we were glad for a very successful event this year. We hope it increases next year. And then, of course, the city of Riverbank participated in that with the annual carnival for our families here in Riverbank. Number 4, support community-driven multicultural events. We heard tonight about Dia de los Muertos, which is the celebration that's going to be held this year on November 3rd. And then earlier in June, there was the Viva Mexico cultural event. That was a 2-day event held in the Riverbank Community Center. So we were excited to see that come to our city. Support efforts to improve air quality. As I mentioned earlier, air quality monitoring stations have actually been installed in city camera locations. So at the touch of a button, city staff can look at air quality and be able to share that with our residents. That does come into play a lot during the summer events when there's the possibility of fires and smoke that travel into our region, that we could be able to give that information to our residents. And then number 6, engage the community and nonprofit partners in the development of programs, facilities, transitional housing, or solutions for homelessness. Our day use facility is complete. And so we're really excited that we're looking to plan this month a ribbon cutting for that. We will be looking at a soft opening once all the equipment is going in, but we are looking to plan that event. And for those who may have passed by Sierra House, it looks very different. So it is under rehabilitation. And then we're currently reviewing the proposals that we've received for the Jackson Stanislaus property. So that will most likely come to the city council at the first meeting we're already in October almost. So first meeting in October for possibility of review. And that is all I have for the update to the strategic plan. Just to advise City Council, it has been our past practice to update the strategic plan or review it in an open session at least every 2 years. So we are currently working with a new consultant to be able to provide that strategic planning session for all of City Council. Members of the public are invited to those strategic planning sessions. It does give all of the members of the public a good idea of what future plans the city is looking into. But mainly it sets goals and priorities for staff, and it gives us objectives to be able to meet those goals and priorities. And so that helps staff at least focus their efforts to ensure that the work that we're doing will meet those goals. And I'm available for questions if there are any, but that is my update for tonight.
So just to clarify, ribbon cutting next month, correct?
We are looking at this month, so you should be seeing something shortly in your
October.
Yeah, October. Oh, yeah. I know. We're almost there.
Yeah, no, I am looking forward to the reviewing it in open session. Just some of the stuff that the takeaways from the California League's meetings that we had, like AI and how that's affecting cities. So I am looking forward to these open discussions with council.
Just we keep doing amazing things for a small city and minimal staff. I can't wait until we're fully staffed. All right, we're going to move on. Thank you, Maricela. Thank you for your staff's hard work and all of this. At this time, we'll go to public comment. Members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and with the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during public comment cannot be discussed or acted upon. You speak directly into the microphone and directly to the council. Going to Zoom first. Do we have any public comment?
Mayor, we have one on Zoom wishing to speak.
Go ahead.
This is Jamie Eggers. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Eggers.
Thank you. I tried to raise my hand during the question session about strategic plan, but I wasn't answered. So I'll ask my question now, which is, can you explain why you've had implementing Riverwalk as a goal in your strategic plan, I believe since 2019, the prior version of the strategic plan, before the public even knew that there was a Riverwalk plan? Why was that included as a goal in your strategic plan before the environmental impact report has come out and before it has even come before council? Thank you.
No other public comments on Zoom?
Mayor, there is no one else on Zoom wishing to speak.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the public in chambers who would like to speak. Jacob.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So I'd just like to provide a brief legislative update. So currently the Senate is out of session. They will re-adjourn, or they will be back in session on January 3rd of next year. Prior to us going out of session, we had a few bills make it to the governor's desk. So I just want to go over those 4 bills. So SB 470, that was our bill related to drought relief. That was presented to the governor on September 15th. And then SB 606, which would improve highway transportation efficiency in the Eastern Sierra region. That was presented to the governor on September 20th. SB 716 provides common sense worker protections. That was presented to the governor on September 20th. And then SB 780 supports farmers and ranchers by streamlining the regulatory authority for commercial feed, presented to the governor on September 15th. Once those bills were presented, the governor has 12 days either to sign or to veto. If there is signed into law, our office will be notified by phone call. If it is vetoed, a letter will be slipped underneath our Capitol office's door. I thought that was a pretty interesting thing. I didn't know that. And then finally, one more thing. The senator was able to secure funding for $1.3 million throughout Senate District 4. 2 of those funding opportunities were in Stanislaus County for the city of Turlock for parks and sewer infrastructure. That totaled $435,000. And then for the Stanislaus Community Foundation Latino Leadership Fund, which was $200,000. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I'd just like to take an opportunity. My name's Randy Richardson. I live at 2528 Cottage Point Drive in Riverbank. And our last meeting, my respect for all of you just went to a whole nother level. And I know that in leadership, one of the things that we have to do is be able to distinguish between what is personal and what is because of the position that we fulfill. And you guys demonstrated that in a very, very professional way last meeting. And I just want to honor you and thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent calendar consisting of 9-1, waive reading, 9-2, approval of the City Council and Local Redevelopment Authority Board minutes from September 12th, 2023. Item 9-3, resolution to award bid for the 7th Street Outfall Project to Dirt Dynasty, Inc., authorize execution of future change orders and authorizing a budget amendment for the additional $380,951 from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Item 9-4, resolution authorizing a budget amendment of $32,693 to the American Rescue Plan Act funds for the Riverbank Museum ADA Path and Ramp project. Are there any discussions or comments on the consent calendar?
Just have one comment. I hope that this is the last time that we hear about this 7th Street Outfall project. It's been many years in trying to get it fixed, so I hope that this really does fix it this time. It's a lot of money that we're putting towards this to try to get it fixed, so I just hope that we'll have to hear about it again. Thank you.
Unfortunately, you'll have to approve the conclusion of it. Any other comments? Do I have a recommendation?
I'd like to make a recommendation that we accept the consent calendar as stated.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve the consent calendar and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Uribe,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Item 11.1, Permanent Local Housing Allocation PLHA Formula Allocation Plan Discussion.
Mayor and council, this item is coming before you as a result of an action that we took at the last city council meeting, which resulted in McRoy Wilbur, who is the builder for the River Terrace project, and the refund of the permanent local housing allocation program funds that we had initially allocated to that project. So with the funds coming back to the city, we do need to discuss whether the initial plan that we had in place should still remain, or whether council is interested in reallocating those funds to one of the other eligible activities within the program. So just to give council and our residents some background on PLHA, it is a result of the legislation known as SB2, which is established a permanent source of funding to increase affordable housing within California. The revenues are received from real estate transactions and from some bond issuances that are made by the state. 70% of those revenues from SB2 must go to eligible local governments for housing-related projects and programs, and that's what's called PLHA. The goals were to increase the supply of housing for households at or below 60% of area median income, increase assistance to affordable owner-occupied workforce housing, assist persons who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness, facilitate housing affordability for our lower and moderate income households, promote projects and programs to meet the local government's unmet share of the regional housing needs allocation, and to ensure geographic equity in the distribution of funds. So the city of Riverbank is entitled to these funds. We do have to apply for them, but as long as we have a plan in place, then the state of California provides us with that funding source. We are entitled to these funds for a 5-year period, and the funding actually began in 2019. So let's talk about the eligible activities. The first is with relations to multifamily residential live work, which is basically where somebody has a business on the bottom and lives on the top floor, or rental housing. You can pay for pre-development costs, which include design engineering, any applications, any CEQA work that might need to be prepared as part of the proposed development. You can pay for actual development costs. This is now construction-related items. They can be off-site improvements. They can be actual construction costs as a for rental units or multifamily units. Acquisition, perhaps there's a multifamily unit, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, or even rental housing apartments that we could acquire with the use of the funds. We could provide rehabilitation funds to owners of multifamily units or rental housing or residential live work in order to rehabilitate those to ensure that all health and safety standards are being met. And the preservation, let's say, for example, there was a rental units, affordable housing units that were going to be sold off, and that we felt was important to preserve for our residents. We could actually pay for those to remain, or the city could purchase those themselves. And these would be for extremely low, very, very low, low or moderate income households that would be eligible for these programs. The second is similar to number one in the payment of pre-development, development, acquisition, and rehabilitation, but this is for affordable rental and ownership housing that includes accessory dwelling units. This is where the Ward Villas or River Terrace project fell, in that it was going to be ownership housing. Now, the difference between the one above, which also discusses rental housing, is that this one sets up a 120% AMI for our workforce housing folks. So this would be two-income families who would not necessarily be qualified as extremely low or low-income residents. We would be able to provide funding for projects that could rent to folks that are at this income level or sell to individuals at this income level. The third eligible activity has to do with what's called a local or regional housing trust fund. These trust funds are actually a conglomeration of cities, or sometimes it could be counties, that kind of band together and have a trust fund where they place their funds into basically like a pot, and then developers would have the ability of applying for these funds for their development. And so you look at this as a more of a regional approach to housing development versus a local approach to housing development. Now, if you had a local one, it would simply be your city, and you're putting funds into that. But most of the ones that have been set up in the state of California have been regional in nature, so that a variety of cities or developers can apply within all those different cities. There's currently not one that's established in Stanislaus County, so this really would not be an option for us at this point in time. This number 4 is matching funds for low and moderate income housing asset fund. These are the former RDA funds that the city held when RDA was active. RDA or redevelopment had 2 funding sources. One was for economic development, and we have our beautiful downtown to show off for the funds that we received for that. The second was for low income housing. And so what we actually did with the funds that we received for that is that we loaned them to the Riverbank family apartments in order for them to build that site. So on an annual basis, we loan them $3.2 million on an annual basis. They do annual reporting. There's affordability covenants, which ensures that those units remain affordable to our residents. And then as long as they meet those affordability covenants, they don't have to repay the funds. So basically, it's just a standing loan. The minute it turns into market rate housing, they're going to be required to pay that $3.2 million back to the city. The city had a tiny little bit of funds left over, about $100,000, and we used that also as part of the funds that we gifted or that we granted to the Ward Villas project. Those funds are also going to be returning to the city. So technically we would have matching funds available. So we have the $100,000 that will be returning to the city for that, for the RDA funds. And those are slightly less restrictive than the regular PLHA funds. Number 5 is capital reserves for services that are connected to permanent supportive housing. So this could be for operating costs for individuals, or for companies that have, or not companies, but for developers that build permanent supportive housing. It could pay for wraparound services if they needed case management, if they needed to bring in, someone like a Cambridge Academies to provide services. It can help to pay for some of those. It could also help to pay and build up your reserves, so should there be any capital needs in the future or any upgrades that are necessary. So that would really require the city to look at its current permanent supportive housing providers and provide them with an opportunity to provide for grants. So Stanislaus Regional Housing Authority, who oversees a multitude of different developments throughout the city that provide permanent supportive housing, like our senior units or the units that are off of Bernieville. Number 6, assisting persons who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. So there's a variety of things that we could do with the funding that would help our residents who are currently at risk of homelessness. So perhaps they're about to lose their rental unit or their home because they can't pay the mortgage, or they can't pay their rent for that month, or they might be behind in rent and they're about to get evicted. So you could provide them with rental assistance. You could provide them with rapid rehousing. Let's say, for example, somebody just lost their home, but there's one available and they just simply don't have that first and last month's rent. You could help them with that. You could also provide supportive or case management services to folks who might be at risk of going through a foreclosure because they can't pay for a mortgage. There's actually courses and assistance that you can provide to them through that. You can provide operating costs for navigation centers and emergency shelters. This is going to be our Sierra House. If we wanted to set aside these funds in order to continue the operations of Sierra House, whether it be the shelter itself or the day use facility, we could continue to do that. And so that would be an option. The seventh item is accessibility modifications for lower income owner occupied housing. What is that? So that would be basically ADA updates to homes, older homes typically, for lower income residents. This is similar to a program we currently have. We currently have a housing rehabilitation program, but that one also follows the same income guidelines as our first-time homebuyer program because of the funding source. So it's limited to 80% AMI. This would broaden that to the 120% AMI. Our lower income residents do tend to live in certain sections of town. They may not have funding available to make upgrades to their necessary upgrades to their home with regards to accessibility, should they happen to be in a vehicle accident or some kind of accident that limits their mobility, that we would be able to use the funding sources for that. If the city was looking to develop a program such as that, we would probably follow the same type of guidelines as we do for our existing program, just because it would probably follow the same process and procedure for review of applications, for construction, etc. We would just have the added ability to expand it due to the income guidelines that are allowable under PLHA. Number 8 is efforts to acquire and rehabilitate foreclosed or vacant homes and apartments. So the city could go out, purchase a home that's currently vacant or been foreclosed on, rehabilitate it, and then basically turn around and sell it to a first-time home buyer at a lower cost. You know, we're a city, so we're not necessarily out there to look for a profit. So the funding can go towards being able to do that. Number 9, home ownership opportunities that include a down payment assistance program. So the city currently has a first-time home buyer program where we loan up to $100,000 to residents to be able to purchase their first home. Without this second loan, residents would not be able to do that. Because of the funding source that we have, we're limited to the 80% AMI once again, income limits. That has definitely hindered our ability to use the funds that we currently have in place because unfortunately residents at that income level just simply cannot afford buying a home, especially with the way that the interest rates are at this point in time and with the way that the housing values are at. With this program, it does expand it a little bit where you could use it for residents at 120% AMI. But you would also be able to do a true down payment assistance program. A lot of financing sources, for example, CalHFA, which is CalHFA, requires that residents put down at least 3.5% of their own funding in order to purchase their home. Well, for some of the mortgages or some of the, let's say ward villas, for example, when we ran those numbers, that was about $20,000 to $23,000 per home. For someone to have that in their bank, they may not have that in order to do their down payment. So we could set up a program similar to that. The city of Ripon has a program similar to that. Theirs is funded a little bit different, but it does provide for at least $20,000 in actual down payment assistance for those who just simply can't come out of pocket for that. And then the last is going to be fiscal incentives made by a county to incentivize. So this could be in looking at matching funds that, you know, they may have received, developers may have received from the state of California, or other affordable housing funds that they may have applied for themselves. Perhaps they applied for home key, and these could provide also matching funds for that. So that could be a potential option. So those are the eligible activities that we have an opportunity to pull from. But let me go over really quick. When we first talked about these funds, this was the initial allocation plan. We had planned for 1 year of affordable rental or housing ownership. And then after the last 4 years, we talked about making sure we had funding for transitional housing, the housing rehabilitation program that was shared with the accessibility, housing acquisition and rehab. So that means we had wanted to really go out there and purchase and rehabilitate a home, and for first-time home buyers. Those were the main programs we wanted to do. After our discussions with Mr. Pope and the development of Ward Villas, we did update that plan so that the first 3 years of funding, 2019, 20, and 21, went specifically towards that development. And the funding for 2022 and 2023, we slated for transitional housing, housing rehab, and housing acquisition and rehab. So the question for council tonight is that we will be receiving a refund from the Ward Villas project, who we had signed a memorandum of understanding back in October of 2020. We amended the memorandum of understanding to increase the income limits that would be applicable to the project so that it could take advantage of the 120% AMI. And unfortunately, at the last meeting, you know, we had to come back to council to say we're in need of they're going to refund those funds because they just simply were not able to make the program work. So they'll be refunding $100,000 of the former RDA funds that were granted to them. And then the 3 years worth of the PLHA funds, which came out to $440,000 approximately, back to the city. So that's the 541 that will be coming back. So number one is, do we reallocate the funds that were awarded to Ward Villas to a different eligible activity? And is council still comfortable with the eligible activities that we've selected for 2022 and 2023? Next month, the state of California will open up the application process for the 2022 funds. They're always a year behind. And so I'll have the ability to log online, request the funding, and then be able to look to implement the projects that were selected for that year. So just to remind council, for 2022, we looked at transitional housing, housing rehab, and housing acquisition and rehab, with housing acquisition and rehab getting the majority of the funding. So as I mentioned, the question for council tonight is years 1, 2, and 3 that are being refunded to that. Are we still comfortable with those following the allocation plan and going towards an affordable rental and housing ownership project? We have 2 developers who have approached the city with potential projects and interest in having the city being able to supply them with funding to make their projects work. If we were to continue that, because we do have different individuals being interested, we would probably open up a request for proposal so that we could evaluate the 2 projects and then have the city council select the best of the 2 and award the funds. Of course, we always have to keep in mind to make sure that they're ready to proceed with the project. But we can also pay for pre-development costs that if they were interested in working on design, working on engineering, that some of the funding can go towards that as well. So we do have to keep in mind that we do need the funds to turn over pretty quickly. We don't want them to sit there in the hopes that their development will move forward. We want to make sure that their development is going to move forward. But those are some of the items that we would evaluate as part of proposals that we would receive. So we'll leave that to council and available for questions.
What, how many years do we have left, before we start losing funds?
So we won't lose funds. I just have a 2-year period to request it. So for example, if I do not request the 2022 funds this year, I can wait until 2024 and still be able to request the 2022 year funds. Once we go past 2024, I'll probably no longer be able to ask for the 2022 funds.
What, no, I like the idea of using this in combination with some of our other creative ideas we had in the past, like using the cloud to put development fees, so you can lower your cost. But how do we do that to get affordable housing either for purchase or for rental? For example, do we need to manifest the American dream by having a house, or can we have a third entity do management of low-income housing rental, either through rehabilitation or through development?
So I think what you're asking is, can we basically send the funds over to a third party who's going to run these different types of programs on our behalf? And I mean, technically we could hire somebody, but you would only be limited to administrative costs as a result of that. So there would only be a certain percentage that you could request. You would still go through a request for proposal project process for someone who actually offers those types of services and ensuring that they're still complying with all of the income limits and restrictions that are placed. So we simply couldn't just hand the funds over and say, okay, we're done. We think we've done our part. We would still have annual monitoring of those programs and all of that.
For example, the tiny homes that are coming up. If we had another project like that, could we use that for the development and also administration?
Certainly. So whether it be, as I mentioned, it would be a request for proposals because you have multiple developments that have already approached the city about being interested in having the funds over to them. So if it were, for example, the developer that was going to develop the Jackson and Stanislaus property, it would go through that exact same process because they could use them for services as well. But that means we could continue with the first 3 years of funding being for affordable rental or housing ownership, because technically those projects are going to be affordable rental projects. So there would be no need to update. Council would just simply specify the plan looks great as is. And so the funds that will be coming back will go towards, you know, that affordable rental or housing ownership program.
Just like, Darlene has a good program. Could we use that to purchase a house for that program?
So I could not answer that question at this point in time because that may constitute a conflict of interest for Councilmember Barbara Martinez. So
get out of here. I'm going to talk about you. All right. Thank you.
So I think there's a lot of good ways that we can go here with the notice of funding. That'd be the fairest way for developers. With the tiny house project still infancy stage. I think the Del Rio Live Work project, infancy stage, I think down the road, maybe the 2022, 2023 years probably makes the most sense down the road. Or even the 400,000 we're going to need for the shelter, still evaluating what the day use is going to run per year. So that those are probably 2022, 2023 allocations. I think with the ward project, now called River Terrace, I think that would be in my opinion, a good investment to our residents. You can help 27 families cover that $20,000 to $23,000 down payment. If we give out loans of $20K, we're helping out up to 27 families. It's a loan, so we'll get, it's an investment for us too. So we'll get the money back. And to the developer, it was no fault of their own. They they literally tried everything you know, they tried to complete every hurdle, and they just weren't able to do it. So I think they did put in a good faith effort in trying to complete the project, and I think we have an opportunity to kind of help them achieve that goal. So that's where I would lean.
I'm super interested in leaning towards the two tiny home projects that you were talking about. Can you talk a little bit more about the housing acquisition rehab, the 60%? Is that is the city in a place to be able to do that and take on that percentage, or I'm thinking about maybe reallocating some of that?
So we would be in the exact same position as any other potential home buyer that's out there. So it would be looking probably at a foreclosed home, slightly older home, and we would be competing for that. Right now, the rental investors are pretty active in the market, so that definitely provides for some competition. So the question would be, would we have sufficient funds at that point in time? We're receiving approximately $170,000 a year, so that's not going to take us very far in year one. Year two, possibly, because we might have about $340,000 built up with the 2 years together. So that might, maybe by then, you know, the housing market has kind of stabilized a little bit where we would have the opportunity to do that. And, you know, at that point, you know, we could possibly look at that as an option. But at this point for 2022, 2023, if council wants to continue with the programs that are listed as is, that's perfectly fine. If not, we would come back. And so tonight is going to be a discussion. If there are changes to be made, we would return with a formal resolution to have the plan updated that we could then submit to the state of California. So that would still provide you with a second opportunity to say, wait, I don't think that we're quite ready for that yet. So, you know, let's make these changes.
I think I'm kind of leaning towards the down payment assistance. I really like that idea, and I think that'd be a really good use of our money. I also really kind of am interested in the live workspace. I think that kind of hits that mid-range that we don't have a lot of. I think we've got some projects going on for the lower end of our housing element projects, but that mid-range, that live work sounds kind of interesting, and I think I'd like to pursue that one too. So I like those too.
I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to implicate myself with my projects that I have going on. But I just think that the way that we have it right now is great, because I think that the options that we have give our residents more of an opportunity to have a place to live, whether it be in a tiny home or, you know, low income. I just think that the allocations are fine the way they are.
Do we have any, I'm sorry, did I cut you off? No. Do we have any strong affiliations with Stanislaus Housing Authority?
Strong affiliations with regards
they have money too.
Yes.
If we could, just a recommendation through some of our allocations we've already have, but what could they do? Could they use $400,000 that go ahead and do some of the units they do, like they have in Ceres, Modesto near Yosemite, you know, those type of programs that they have.
And that could be possible to do that as well. And honestly, if we were going to look at that they could also apply for funding just like the other potential developments that we have. This would be another opportunity for them to be able to match some of the funds that they have and be able to kind of facilitate that development here in Riverbank. Of course, for them, probably in particular, it would be location. Is they don't currently have a location, where the other two developments that we've kind of been discussing already have a location in mind and already have that.
We don't have any vacant inventory to go ahead and purchase.
Nothing that's owned by the city of Riverbank. Of course, there's going to be a vacant land inventory made as part of our housing element update. There's a couple of very well-known locations that have had a couple of proposals made, but that just haven't quite been able to jump the hurdle of the public and their concerns about development there, particularly the vacant land that's right next to the MID Canal, over off of Jackson and Morel. There's been some cleanup. I drove by and it looks like they're, at least trying to do something there, but we've had a couple of developments proposed there that just have not been successful.
I mean the duck location.
Yes,
Okay.
the duck. So it's vacant.
This is a discussion. I'm going to open it up to the public on Zoom first.
Mayor, there is no one on Zoom wishing to speak.
Very good. Is there anyone? I close Zoom, open it up here in the chambers. Green light on, you speak.
It is on,
Okay.
yes. I guess I'm just not talking loud enough like yourself, so appreciate
Put
that.
loud enough.
Good evening, Mayor O'Brien, members of the council, Kerry Pope. As most of you know, I was the original developer of the Ward Villas, and which is now River Terrace. Councilmember Uribe is correct. We worked very hard to try and keep that an affordable project, and it's been difficult at best for because of cost overruns and cost increases and interest rates. But I do think that since these funds were allocated for that project, I'm here to advocate that they remain there. And maybe not in their entirety, but I think that the down payment assistance program is important. The fact of the matter is that the city does have a down payment assistance program, but because no fault of the city or anybody here, but the rules associated with that, with obtaining those funds, they're impossible. And I don't think that there's been one loan made. This is an opportunity for us to help the working families. These are people that can go out and get a mortgage, but they just, because of the cost of living and inflation, have not been able to accumulate a down payment. This would allow them to do that. And the difference is that the mortgage lenders will allow it doing it this way, and they would not allow it doing it the 14 other ways that we had proposed before. This project is ready to go. It's under construction. It would be based as a loan, so it would not be just put out to another project and be gone. Eventually, those funds will end up coming back. It is going out to the working families. These are people that will have to obtain a mortgage. So, and unless somebody can tell me, and I pretty well know most of the projects in this county, I don't think that there's any other projects with for sale product that's in the $300,000 range, which this one is. The $400,000 and $500,000 and $600,000 range, you can find those all day. Those people have to qualify for great mortgages, and most of them have a lot of down payment. This one would apply to the working families. In closing, I would just really try, and I'm more than willing to try and help on if there's any blue ribbon committees or anything like that can help. I'm here to try and help that. And if all of these funds don't go to necessarily this project, at least we would have other down payment that these working families could do on a resale home, possibly within the city as well. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has. Thank you.
Okay, bring it back for any continued discussion or this is just a discussion. There's no decision. But while we were at the league conference, you must have been, or it was another city manager, listening to some of the presentations. The state is putting out billions of dollars for housing. And one of the things to help individuals obtain housing would be some type of a artificial mortgage set aside just for certain qualifications for low, very low income housing individuals. I think no matter what we do here, we talk to our legislators and, move forward some ideas of how do we get people into housing instead of making it a program, but make it a reality of either going through some type of a mortgage at 2%, which is affordable to a lot, and at the same time, being able to get any assistance in down payments that will come back to the state in 20 to 30 years, not a great deal of interest, but will come back. So I think if we can come up with some type of proposal that we could have our legislators in their time off, start preparing the big bills that will make sense instead of having a revolt against the number of unfunded mandates that the state is putting us in. But that's just a recommendation. I think we could come up with something like that.
Well, I think it would be great to at least advocate on behalf of the smaller cities who don't have the staff or the ability to be able to go out after these billions of dollars that are available. And I'm thinking of the Project Home Key application that we worked on, that the city council directed that we apply for last year. Going through those grant applications are not easy at all. They take a lot of staff time. They take a lot of expertise. There's a lot of acronyms and notions and very little training and very little assistance to be able to get that done. You might get some feedback through their technical assistants who kind of says, yeah, I think that looks okay, but they are very tedious and hard to go through. And so I applaud cities like Modesto and like Turlock who can have the staff that's dedicated to being able to do that, because they're the ones who are getting the funding and have those opportunities. Unfortunately, we just don't have quite the same ability to do that here. And so it's very difficult. And I know the state has been having discussions about making that grant application process more streamlined, where you could possibly apply one time and they take that grant application and try to apply it to all of the different funding sources they have. So we're not continually having to worry about updating plans, updating this, apply for this one now because the next one's coming up soon, and not having to do that. So those are discussions I feel are important at the state level, and just the amount of red tape to have to actually get the funding from them. I know, Carrie, we felt the pain of having to wait almost a year for them to actually send us the grant agreement, and then us being able to request the funding to come in so that we could finally get him paid and get some of those invoices taken care of. Even that takes quite a while through the state. So, those are just some of the struggles that we have to deal with when it comes to these housing funds that they say are so plentiful. It's just so difficult for us to be able to actually get them and use them.
Okay. Any other discussions? Okay, I'm going to end the discussion. We're going to move on to comments. Staff comments.
I think I've said enough today, so
Yes,
nothing
you
from
have.
me.
But very informative. Councilmember Jones Cruz.
The only thing I have this evening, and I'm sure others are going to talk about it, is that we got a chance to attend the California League of Cities conference last week. It was a good use of our time and had some very good information and some chances to network with other folks that are in the same business as we are. So it was a good use of my time, at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Riverbank.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to give a quick shout out to our superintendent, Dr. Constantino Aguilar, who was able to achieve a partnership between the Riverbank Unified and UC Merced. It's going to benefit our students if they maintain certain courses, certain GPAs. They have automatic admission to UC Merced. So thank you to Norma for attending on our behalf. And as Nancy Garcia said earlier, it's best for our students, and I think our superintendent is getting us in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
I attended the Center for Human Resources. They have a new youth navigation center. They had a grand opening and dedication that will be used for housing for at-risk young adults ages 18 to 24, and for those that are homeless or at risk of being homeless. It has 14 units and it's in an apartment style complex. And as our city manager said, yeah, the bigger cities are getting the funds to do that because this was a home key project that they were awarded funds for. And I also enjoyed attending our League of California Cities conference. It was a lot, but I think that the time that I was there was well spent in my learning process. And let's see, the International Heritage Festival, which is going to be Saturday, October 7th. It's going to be in Modesto. They are celebrating 30 years. It's going to be at Grisado Park on Saturday, October 7th. And then I don't know this gentleman, but this is my last but not least. He was mentioned on the TV today that he is 100 years young, and he is one of our residents in Riverbank. His name is Lupe Garcia. So I just want to give Mr. Garcia a hand, turning 100 years old. And I think that's just wonderful. And thank you, that's it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I've been mentioning the Water Education for Latino Leaders program I'm in. We were able to travel the week before Cal Cities to the Mexico-US border, where we were able to tour their wastewater treatment plant, which is non-functioning at the moment. So, I mean, Cody, shout out to everything that you're doing for the city and just as a whole, because to be able to learn about systems that are non-functioning and the implications that happen for real, people was humbling. And Cal Cities also very, very fruitful. I mean, real things that we've been talking about even earlier today. Some of our neighboring cities have been going through some Zoom hate comments and racist comments that people are kind of like not being productive for cities, and that was just one of the key elements of Cal Cities. And so we were able to come prepared, or even a little more prepared, just in case that was going to happen to us. So really good events.
Thank you. In the strategic planning, you talked about the youth council and Riverbank Unified School Districts. We have 2 other high schools that we need to also engage, and we haven't gotten any traction. I'd like to have an effort, and I'd like to spearhead that because that was one thing, what was it, 2019, that we haven't really moved on. It's very refreshing that the regulatory agencies have started solidifying and softening their comments towards the LRA or the ammo base. So that may open up comments. And I'd like to start putting another push like we did before in June to come on up with what are the true issues and how can we resolve them to get that property transferred. We need to have another nonprofit civic organization summit. We haven't had it coming up on almost 2 years. Is she looking at me? Okay. If you could get the person who organizes it to, thank you, Norma. With that, I think I'll stop. I think the daggers are coming too close. We're gonna go into closed session. The public will have 3 minutes to comment on any closed session item as set forth on the agenda prior to us going into closed session. Item 13.1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 Delta, potential cases 1. Item 13.2, liability claim, pursuant to Government Code Section 54961, claimant Janet Pritish, agency claimed against City of Riverbank. Is there anyone on Zoom wishing to comment on either one of those?
Mayor, there is no one on Zoom wishing to
Anyone
speak.
in the public wishing to comment on these? Seeing none, we're going to recess to close session. Maybe we're not gonna be out of here. We ready? Okay. The City Council LRA Board meeting is back in session. Reporting item 14.1, report from closed session. Item 13.1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, potential cases. 1, direction has been provided to staff. Item 14.2, report from closed section. Item 13.1, liability claim. The claim will be, has been granted and direction has been provided to staff. The next regular council meeting will be on Tuesday, October 10th, 2023 at 6 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned.